Today's guest is Felicity Eliot, who has been an active member of the worldwide Share International group since 1976. She explains information presented and brought up to date by founder Benjamin Creme and draws from a background in the Ageless Wisdom Teachings. Benjamin Creme's books and her long association with him, as well as over 40 years of study by the works of Tibetan Master Djwal Khul. So let's welcome today's guest, Felicity Eliot. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Adam. Nice to be here. Nice to be with you.
We're in we've always had challenges in our lives, and as we come upon this era of our evolution and our expansion, many people are faced with either going inward or growing and expanding upon the pressures that are being exerted upon us. And much of what you do and much of the work you do is raising people's levels of consciousness and bringing awareness to the planet itself and what lies beyond the planet and the information or teachings of others that you've assimilated with that have helped people evolve. And just listening to many of your interviews and the information that you present is very informative and inspiring, because it makes you really think about humanity and where we're headed. And maybe you could just touch a little bit upon about what you do and how you got into the work that you do.
Sure. And I just wanted to say, I didn't know your show, but coming up to this and in preparation, I watched a couple of them, and I noticed straight away, it's absolutely clear and obvious, you are obviously someone who cares about humanity and what's best for humanity. And I see that you're doing similar work along your own lines. So the question for us all at the moment is, and I guess it's part of your question, is what's best for humanity at the moment? As you said, you framed it beautifully. Do we go out or do we go in, or is it a combination of the two? And I guess I would say, from our point of view, and I speak for Share International, but I also speak personally and privately, I think the best is a combination of both, so that we look at what we need to do to redress the balance in our world, because we clearly feel that we're out of balance. I think recently in the States, I think people have, but not only in the States, throughout the world, people are feeling as if there's something not quite right, or it doesn't feel comfortable. And how do we deal with this? How do we redress that balance? And for me, I think I would say it's a combination of going inward, and we can talk about that, because a large part of Benjamin Creme's work and that of his master was to bring a new type of meditation to the world, which is a kind of combination of serving the world in a particular way and at the same time doing your own meditation. So it's an act of service, but you're centering, you're aligned, you're and becoming more and more aware of the needs of the world and how you can help. So that's the going inward, and thinking about what we need to do in our world and how that was presented by Benjamin Creme was always a question of, well, look at what the world needs, be responsive to the world's needs. So how can you serve? How can one best serve the world? All of us. Every single one of us. And I have to make quite sure that people know Share International is a loose grouping of people who work together as volunteers, really. We're not a cult. I know many people think we might be a religion or a cult and so on because of certain aspects of our information. But that is precisely what it is. It is information, and we present it as such. We don't ask people to believe or not believe. We're simply putting out the information, and people have to see whether does it say something to you intuitively? Does it touch your heart in some way? And the main part of, I would say, one of the largest parts of the information from Benjamin Creme is that we're all interconnected through life after life, and we've all had millions of lives or hundreds of thousands of lives. We evolve. And in that process of evolution, we grow more and more aware of our interconnectedness. We begin to understand that we're one. And because we are a unit, not simply just nice people, neighbors, and so on, it's more than that. We're literally part of each other's fiber, part of the whole being. There's something called an oversoul, and we're all part of that. And as you come into that realization, you realize too, with this evolutionary process, that you are evolving step by step. That gives you a broader sense of the world. You begin to identify more and more with what you can do to help. And behind that evolutionary process, and as part of it, there are people who are more evolved because they started earlier or they went a little bit faster. Um, and they have become what we in the Ageless Wisdom call masters. And they are masters of themselves, not masters over someone else. That's an entirely wrong idea. But mastery over the different levels of or different dimensions of life. And they have managed to reach a stage where they have planetary consciousness on all levels and beyond that. So they're omnipresent, omnipresent, I would say, and are therefore able to serve 24/7, minute by minute. They are in touch with all of us, humanity, and they are serving us to help us move forward, because behind all this is a great being. Some people would call it source or God or the prime energy. However you see it, it is consciousness itself. And as you know, through quantum physics and people's experience and near-death experiences, people are beginning to understand that light and energy and consciousness can be brought together and seen as aspects or one way or another of expressing the same thing, which is this great consciousness which we are part of.
Yep.
So you have the masters, and leading the masters, as it were, a rather more evolved being, is someone that we know has a personal name and is now in the world, according to Benjamin Creme and the masters. And his name is Maitreya, and he comes really to help us make the next step, to change from, everybody knows this, I'm not telling anybody anything new, but everyone knows that we've moved from the Piscean age, 2,500 years, 2,150 years, whatever it was exactly, to this new age of Aquarius. And because we're in transition, it's uncomfortable. And that's what you see, what's happening in the world so obviously. Structures are breaking down, the political, need I say more? The political, the economic, the social, all of our systems they don't answer our needs anymore.
Right.
You know what it feels like, Adam. You know, you're wanting something, you're looking for something, and yet the answer isn't there. It's not in politics, it's not in philosophy. Do you know what I mean? So there's the sense of it's a sort of frustration in humanity, but in a way it's a good frustration, because it means if you have that you're alive to the possibility of growth of consciousness, of development, and that brings you to that stage of being able to empathize with humanity and therefore be of so much more use and service. And so what it does is it enables people to step over the threshold of selfishness into a kind of, in America, you're so good at it, there's a kind of deep kindness, goodwill, neighborliness that means I care for everyone else around me. I help, I care, I lend a hand where I can. It's that spontaneous, great goodwill of humanity that you see very, very clearly in America. And it is a sort of basic quality of the States. And growing, developing with these new energies coming into the world, because Aquarius brings new energies. Now, some people call it light, new light entering and changing our being. Some people talk about it in terms of energy. We tend to talk about it in terms of energy. New energies coming into our planet and having their effect. Gradual for most of us, and all change takes time. But we will get there eventually. We'll get there in the end. But we need to start taking the steps. And in order to wake up, we do need the help, I believe, and I have understood this from Benjamin Creme and from studying the Master Djwal Khul, that we do need help. We need some wise wise advice, which comes from a deep, deep understanding of the human condition and what this planet is about and the state of our planet and what the great consciousness that ensouls this planet has in mind for himself, for I say in himself, for us, for itself.
Yeah.
So that's a very I've gone out in a lot of different ways, but I hope that gives some sense of where, the way we approach things.
Yeah, well, I think that
I don't know if it
information,
does.
well, absolutely. I think the information resonates. I think once we're on our own personal journey within ourselves, I think, as we mentioned before, going inward, I think that inward journey begins with actually questioning our own identity, our own background, how we were raised, and working on that smaller microcosm as it expands into the world. Because I think political structures are no different than certain parental structures, and how children and families are
Yeah.
split apart, narcissist behavior, gaslighting, and all different kinds of low energy vibrations in order to keep people in a state of fear and have control over them. Yeah.
Yes, and you're touching on such a good thing, and that is that conditioning, isn't it? Really, we have to break out of our conditioning and start asking exactly the questions you've just mentioned. Yeah, exactly. And the longer we're held by this conditioning and so on, the longer we're sort of walking in a fog. And when you start asking the questions that you mentioned, then things begin to open up, and you're able to see more broadly
Yeah.
where you are and how you can help, what is needed in the world. And yeah, I think it's a question that all of us absolutely need to ask ourselves at the moment is, what can we do to help the world? Because it certainly looks as if it needs a lot of help at the moment. And I don't mean necessarily
Yeah.
on a personal basis, individually, but maybe with all of us somehow in our thinking, in our doing, in ways that we see we can serve and help people in community. And I think that the idea that if you're in touch with your soul, the highest aspect of yourself, however you see that, and I know that people talk about different dimensions and so on. So the minute you're more and more in coming in contact with your soul, the broader your view, I've said that, but it means that actually what happens is the soul, the energies and the experience, the life after life experience of the soul is able to filter through
Yes.
our current personality, and we become more ourselves because we're sort of bringing in. I see you recognize this, don't you?
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
I see it insofar as people think that we have to go outside of ourselves and grasp for things extraneous to what to our existence. Not only I'm not talking on material items. I'm talking about even spirituality, looking outside of ourselves. But the inward journey, I think, as you said, takes us deeper into the core of the universe. Once we find who we are and we peel away the layers, not external but internal, then we're connected to that
Internal.
oversoul and that higher self. That's a very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to just
Yeah.
touch up. Go ahead. You wanted to say
Hmm.
something on that?
No, no, go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say in terms of moving the subject along of mentioning Benjamin Creme, as you said, people are always looking for people to, once we're on the path or going down the rabbit hole of information, people are always looking for people who are expanding their level of understanding. And how did you come upon Benjamin Creme yourself in terms of the information
Mm.
and who he is?
Yeah.
And maybe you could just
Um,
describe.
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, way back, this is because you read that I've been busy 40 years, and I thought, oh my goodness, yes, it's true. Um, but I think that I had reached a stage where I had investigated a number of avenues, looked at philosophy and politics and so on, and religion and whatnot, trying to find answers to, of course, the questions that one starts asking as a younger person and so on. And all of them were fine and great, but there was always a but for me. I'm not saying that for other people, but for me, religion wasn't quite the whole thing, and so on. And so a lot of reading, a lot of studying and whatnot, that sort of thing. And then I was very lucky to see an advert one day, and that was in London. And I read the advert, and intellectually it didn't quite make sense to me. It said something about a world teacher being in the world, and Benjamin Creme was giving a talk at the Quaker Meeting House in London. I don't know if you know London, but it was at the Friend's house in London, in the centre of London. And I thought, oh, I have to go to that, and did. And I think I almost feel as if I levitated out of the room. I don't mean it literally, but I felt as if I was flying out of the room, because intuitively it spoke to me, because I saw a man of total integrity, absolute intelligence, high intelligence, fine, sensitive, very humorous, completely aware of the strangeness of his story, always putting it forward as, well, it's up to you whether you think this is interesting or useful, or does it speak to you or not. Right. No hint of fanaticism anywhere. And the story he was telling was about the return to the world of a world teacher. Now, what was a world teacher? I hadn't a clue. I was a teacher, and I wondered what a world teacher was. I found out that the world teacher is the head of this group of masters, and is one of the first. He and the Buddha were two of the first who started their long process of evolution and developed to a particular level, and have been at the forefront of humanity for centuries or decades, no, millennia. And they have often appeared in different forms. Now, for example, Maitreya, the world teacher, is also known by other names such as the Bodhisattva, and looked for by various religions. Now, we don't see it as a religion, but looked for by various religions, such as the new Buddha or the Messiah or the Imam Mahdi for the Muslims and so on. Now, he is all of that because he comes for all of humanity. He does not come for one religion. He doesn't come for one section of humanity. He is literally the world teacher. And he is here to help us transition into this new dispensation, the new civilization, because it's got completely different qualities. If you think of the last 2,000 so many years and what we're trying to achieve, and we know it ideally, in ideal form, we know it, but that's what we will gradually work towards. So Benjamin Creme, an artist, a distinguished artist, who yes, he says, people asked him, I've been at a talk where he's being asked, yeah, but why are you? What's special about you? Why are you the John the Baptist, as it were, now, announcing the return of this world teacher? Why are you? And he said, well, actually, because I am unknown, I'm not the Pope, I'm not someone with influence, because that is very important. And he always stressed this. It is not a question of trying to influence people or to convert people or to, win people to come over to, join your church. Not at all. It's really a question of he needed to be as neutral as possible in a way, and yet energetic, powerful, attractive, intelligent, etc., so that he could put forward this story, which he did for more than 40 years. And he, of course, continued to work as an artist, but at the same time, he began, soon after he began this work, at his master's behest, because, by the way, he was in telepathic contact with his master 24/7. I mean, it was a constant state of being rather than simply, I send you a message, you get the message. He was trained by his master, and so there was a constant rapport backwards and forwards between him and his master. And he could be asked questions, which he was throughout his life working in this way. And he could answer, usually informed by his master, so that he could bring information, wisdom, insight to whatever the question was for people asking. And questions ranged from, what is happening in the world now? What can we expect? What is the way forward? What's the solution to our problem? And I think that you might have seen our name, Share International, is to do with not the stock markets, nothing to do with shares and stocks and shares and bonds and so on, but to do with the idea of sharing. And I really need to explain what Benjamin Creme meant by that and what his master meant by that. And that is the idea of sharing is, I believe, and I would love it if you would challenge me on this, ask me some questions about this, because I think it really goes to the heart of the solution and the problem. The idea of sharing is not simply a question of, I'll share my garden tools with you and you can use my car sometime. When the masters and Maitreya have put forward this idea as a basic solution to humanity's problems, they have said it ought to be a question of really making a structural, systemic change so that we, not only in our communities, not only in our families, but as broad as you can make it an international, a global system where you see if you can organize a different way and find a way to redistribute the world's resources. That means technical know-how, it means our science, it means our medical know-how, it means our resources throughout the world. So you stop, and by that step, if humanity could get to the stage of saying, okay, folks, actually, we do realize that we're one, and we're one being on this planet, and our planet, we have only this planet. I know people have ideas about going to live somewhere else, but the people on those planets might have something to say. But as soon as we can look at the possibility of restructuring and redistributing the world's resources, we get rid of the major tensions which are at the heart of all our wars at the moment. I mean, the world is suffering. I'm sure you, as a sensitive person, and many people who are listening to you, are suffering a particular type of tension and sadness and concern and so on about what is going on in the world at the moment. It is appalling what we're allowing, and it is impacting every single person who is somewhat sensitive to the whole being that we are. And so the idea of sharing, which would be implemented perhaps through an international organization, to which we would all belong, all countries, representing their people, and it would work down, filter down to lower and lower levels. And when I say lower, I mean to national, regional, local levels, so that everyone could participate and let their ideas be, anyone who wants to and can, would put forward their ideas and see if they can work out new systems locally and up to international level of redistribution of world's resources so that everyone has enough. And that is not a big deal. It is not too much to ask. And yet we have not done it yet. Maitreya and the masters and so on, and Benjamin Creme said, there's the one thing we haven't tried yet. How weird that we haven't tried it yet. It is a wonder, Benjamin Creme's master writes, that we have not tried this yet. It is so apparent.
Yeah, I wanted to touch upon that for a
So
second.
obvious.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, sure.
I find it a great idea. I find, just as when, let's say, for example, Jesus entered, the consciousness, that people were at the time ready for some of his information and not ready for his information. And I think when people are willing to be able to share is when they're able to detach themselves from materialism, when they're able to detach themselves from the boundaries that are set upon us by leaders that make us feel we have this land and they have that land and the borders that exist. I think on a personal level, I think when we, again, as we mentioned earlier, when we expand upon our own level of consciousness, when we question our own growth, and then it's a natural process where we start to evolve and to become more conscientious. I think it's about teaching people also the steps of how to become more aware. And I think that's a personal journey for each person. So,
Yes.
so even let's say the Maitreya comes, people like yourself and myself and others who are interested and have a understanding of what lies beyond in the eyes. People would say, "Oh my God, this information is so powerful and so relevant, and this is something that I've been waiting for." Then
Mm,
again, there'll be people who would mock it just like they mocked Jesus's teachings as well. So
sure. Sure.
are there more people now open as per the teachings themselves as that the Maitreya would come in now to be able to, or is he not coming in now? And
Yes, this is a very interesting question, and I think you've come to the heart of the issue of our times. And when I say our times, I mean very current times, 2024. Um, Now, it is said, and I'm sure you know this yourself, that the teacher never comes until the pupil is ready.
right,
Now, Maitreya appeared and came into the world and has been in the world since the late 19, what was it, 79. I forgive me if I haven't got my books handy, so I haven't sort of gone back to check dates and things, and so I'm not very good at dates. But Maitreya entered the world, and the masters came into the world about 12, 13, 14 masters came into the world with him, into the modern, when I say that, I mean into the modern world, functioning in the modern world, known and seen by people, interviewed, and so on. Um, and the hope was, and in fact, the first opportunity, and it was a long shot, but you might have read about the work of Benjamin Creme in 1982. Share International had an international press conference, and we also had international huge adverts, one-page adverts in newspapers around the world. It caught people's imagination and gave them hope, and people hoped that Maitreya could come forward then. Now, he needs to come forward when there are certain conditions are ready. And one would be, for example, that the idea of sharing is beginning to percolate through people's consciousness. In other words, new relationships with each other. It's not only the sense of sharing as a economic or political system. It's really the consciousness that goes with it. So there were a number of priorities set that should be met, conditions that should be met. And we did try, and there was a possibility that he could come forward and make himself known and then talk to people. But I must say, when I say talk to people, Maitreya, and I have experienced his energies, as have many people who work for Benjamin Creme or with Benjamin Creme and in the Share International Group. If you experience his energies, that is what convinces people. So when you do, for example, the form of meditation that I mentioned to you, which is these energies are put through one's higher chakras, but also if you experience Maitreya talking and experience his energy, that is what convinces, because you will feel your heart chakra melt, and it is an extraordinary experience. So it is not only that there's someone coming to talk to humanity, there's someone coming who humanity will experience as being that unconditional love and wisdom that everyone longs for. And that near-death experience people often say they've experienced the sense of total unconditional love, acceptance, and so on. And this is what you experience from Maitreya and his energies. He is the Lord of Love. He embodies that energy on our planet for us. I'm sure you've heard of other great teachers, and probably you've heard about Sai Baba, for example. I don't know if you have. Also someone who embodied the principle of love and the energy of love on our planet and further. I forget where I was, but I think you asked about, are there enough people? Yes. And so there was a time that there were enough people, and I think there still are. The problem is that we are suffering, and just what you said, we have the wrong leaders, we're in systems, either political or economic systems, and also cultural systems, and also conditioning. What you were alluding to, you were saying, for example, we see ourselves as being from one country, and therefore automatically
yeah,
hostile to another country, and so on. And this conditioning, and at the same time, the deep materialism that is really dominant at the moment. I think that although there are enough good people, because I think you were asking what's the
Right.
inherent in your question was what's the balance, right? I think inherent in that question is well, that's a brilliant question, and I think just what you're saying is that you're recognizing there are good people and what you've said, but we're held kind of almost captive by conditioning, by deep materialism, which is rampant at the moment, and by fear you've mentioned, and this conditioning that says automatically we're enemies. I'm an Inuit and you're whatever it is, and
Yeah.
obviously we can't see each other as friends or brothers. And yet that is completely, absolutely incorrect because we are, as we've said already, part of each other. So I think there are enough good people. The question is, how do we lift ourselves beyond and out of the conditioning that keeps us from getting rid of the, the leaders we need or becoming the leaders we should be? And I think that's perhaps more to the point.
Yeah.
Maitreya, Benjamin Creme's master, and Benjamin Creme himself talk very often about the importance of people power, making yourself aware of what's going on, being informed, taking action on the part of others. So taking part in processes with others, because you're not on your own. Actually, yes, you could achieve a lot. Some people can achieve a lot on their own, but you're better working with others and forming a movement, developing it so that you change something. For example, you might change something to do with the climate crisis in your neighborhood. It might be some pollution. It might be something to do with water or and so on, but people working together can achieve a lot. And that was always put forward as something really important.
Yeah.
How we are now in the world, that's a very interesting question because so many of us are either distracted by worry and tension and high food bills, how to pay for our children's education. Um, I can talk, for example, about Britain. At the moment, there's a huge percentage of children in Britain who are in poverty, and, for example, who do not have 3 meals a day, and that is Dickensian. Um, and it is a problem that started way back. And I mean, we could trace it even further back. But for example, we know that there are groups of people, small groups of people, a few families, 10 people, I mean, who are trillionaires and who, they have more, sometimes more wealth in one person's bank account or wherever it is, or in all of his businesses and so on, than the GDP of some countries. Now that's extraordinary and completely out of balance. So when you say, are there enough good people? Yes, but can they afford their bills? Can they speak out? Do they have the energy? Can they find a way forward when there's a weight of emotional worry because of the world circumstances,
Yeah.
because of people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. But the thing is that um, people are connected to the idea that many people are connected to the idea that you live and then you die. And with that, many people have the idea that they take the money and run.
Yeah,
When we look at the concept, I
yeah,
believe in reincarnation, and we understand that our soul is traveling from lifetime to lifetime, experiencing a lesson. I think when we impact people on a human level and let them know that we are here to learn as well as experience, but we're not here to we can exceed our means, and then it becomes a greed, but it also becomes I think everything that we experience, it comes at the time we need to, and it's all a lesson for us. I think even the political
Yes,
situation is teaching us to dislodge ourselves from, old
yes,
systems and for us to question
yeah,
things. So I think without this corruption, without this dysfunction, we would never question it. And so now it's being revealed,
yeah,
and I think it's better. It's actually better,
yeah.
I feel, because people like yourself who are drawing ideas that people can resonate with, but others who can't because they're not at that level of consciousness to be on this path. But certainly it's raising the bar of
I've lost
humanity.
your sound, Adam.
My
I
sound?
lost your sound for a minute.
Is it back?
You're back again.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think it's raising the bar on humanity when you're raising the bar on humanity, and that's the important thing. It's like a school teacher who tells the student who's being disruptive and finding something positive within their behavior so that they have something to grasp onto, is to drag them closer towards becoming more evolved and more,
yeah,
more open.
yeah. Yeah, you've made so many brilliant points now. I mean, that's exactly it. And I think one way all of us can help is by, teaching people these things. It's not teaching so much as exposing people to these ideas, asking whether they could consider where, how does it work? Reincarnation, yeah, how does it work? Because as you say, we're in a school, we're in Earth School, and we're here to learn. We're here to learn, to experience, to be, and to grow, and that consciousness develops, and as we go, we know more and we can help more, as I've said, and I think that's, so as you've just said, if you can get beyond the stage of the personal greed and the disruption or whatever it is, and think more in terms of the community that we are, um, without getting worried about some of the conditioning again, because I know as soon as I talk about reincarnation, some people are worried about the idea because they think somehow it's something scary. Eh, I'm not talking about, I have to make quite clear, and I know that but some people think when they hear the word reincarnation, oh, you mean you're going to come back as a cat or something? No, not at all. Each life brings us further, all things being equal, if possible, we grow, and each life takes us further. So, and each life we come with 3 or 4 very specific aims, very specific goals that we have agreed as souls out of incarnation. We've agreed the personality and the soul, as it were, in other words, the consciousness. The consciousness decides. And the Christian idea, and in some other religions too, of judgment. When you die, you face judgment. I think we've learned a wonderful lesson from many of the near-death experience people, as well as people such as Benjamin Creme and other great teachers, that it is not a question of judgment as such, but it is an assessment and an analysis that we make looking back at our lives, and we say, well, I came in with 3 or 4 very definite and distinct aims. I was going to do this, I was going to learn that, I was going to become, and for each life it's different, and for each person it's different, obviously. And that's what makes us unique. We have very specific lessons to learn and very specific things to achieve and to bring, to give to the world.
Right.
And so when people hear about incarnation, they should know it really is a question of you're given this opportunity, this marvelous life, in which you have the opportunity to work out those specific goals, to become something more, to grow in consciousness, and to give more. And you see, that process of giving, and that's what reincarnation is, it takes us closer to the source. It takes us closer to our real self. And that real self is the soul, and a higher level, some people would talk about as well. And so you're growing into I'm going to use an old-fashioned word. For some people, it's old-fashioned. You're growing into your godness, your divinity, yourself. You're growing into more and more of your soul. And that is what the masters are like. They're like gods in incarnation. And we know it from lives. You mentioned Jesus, and we know it from a life like Jesus. The Master Jesus, by the way, is one of the masters who's back in the world now. And if you'd like some esoteric information about it, I can tell you I've learned from Benjamin Creme that he took up residence on the outskirts of Rome, some distance from Rome, where and he works from there. That is his headquarters, as it were. And there are other masters in different parts of the world who we have known in all, in if you go back in history, and that's very interesting too. If you go back in history and you look at all the household names or well-known names like Leonardo da Vinci or Mozart or Einstein, no, I don't know about Einstein so much, but various people, they have become, and they, for example, let me just take the example of Mozart. How do people explain genius at a very young age?
Right.
Well, it is because he was evolved to a particular level and he had so much more of his soul and higher self streaming through him straight into his fingers and into his music. So it was the genius of a soul that is really manifesting itself in incarnation, in everyday life. And this is what we're aiming for. And all of us have this within us. It just, we have to get there. It'll take me a couple of lives to get anywhere like that. But that's, that's what we're here for, to learn, to grow, to develop, and to express the divinity that we are.
I wanted to take us a little bit out of our galaxy, outside of ourselves, and to
Mm-hmm.
some of the galactic connections that exist. And I know Benjamin Creme had various messages and a connection that he received, I guess,
Yeah.
information on certain things that would take place in the universe or what would happen. Are you familiar with any of that information that you can present or pass on?
Uh, y- yes, perhaps not as intimately as some people, but yes, I know something of it. What Benjamin Creme and his master always made absolutely clear um, is that and I know this sounds very far-fetched. That's why we always say we simply present it as information, take it or leave it. But according to Benjamin Creme and his master, all the planets in our solar system are inhabited. Now, how could that be, and how come we don't know about them, etc., and how come our science hasn't developed this? And then I'll come on further to our relationship with them. Um, One of the next steps in science, and scientists and mathematicians, physicists are beginning well, it's been for quite a long time now, but I have been aware of the existence of a further dimension and a further reality which they can't quite see, and they call it dark matter, dark energy. How does this fit in? How come it seems to be a predominant energy, a predominant dimension, and yet how do we get to it? How do we feel it, and so on? Well, it is the next layer, if you could think of it, we're in, let's say, a dense physical. Then you have a next level, which is finer and finer and finer. Now, the etheric, which is what it's called, and I'm sure you know all about it, the etheric level also consists of four levels. Above you have dense physical, then you get to gaseous, and so on and so on. So it becomes finer and finer. And the people on other planets exist in that etheric substance. It is to them just as real as you and I are to ourselves in this dense physical. But and it is the answer to, because people say, well, I saw a UFO, at least I thought it was a UFO. It was there one minute and it made a couple of interesting movements. So I knew it wasn't a plane, and then it was gone. How come? Well, it is because, and I'm sure you know this, they are able to decrease and then raise again the vibration, so you can come down into physically visible to us, because we do not have, in general, most people on our planet do not have etheric vision yet.
Right.
Some people do, and some younger kids coming in do have. So you come down to our level, they're visible, and then they raise the level again to that higher, finer etheric level, and they're invisible. Of course, they're still there.
Right, right.
Now, on all of the planets are inhabited. And for example, the main visitors to our planet are people from Mars, and Venus. And for example, you spoke to one of our Share International colleagues some years ago, I believe, and he talked about, for example, the work of Adamski. I think you remember
Yes, yes.
George Adamski and so on. Now, Benjamin Creme actually knew, but on the etheric level, as it were, Adamski, and Benjamin Creme worked with the Space Brothers before he started working more along the lines of working as for the work of Share International, bringing this information. So he had personal experience of working with people from other planets. And I must emphasize one fact which people get, according to our information, people get it rather in a confused way. The people, and we all, Benjamin Creme always referred to them as the space people or space brothers, the space brothers. They are 100% positive and here to help. Benjamin Creme has an excellent book called The Gathering of the Forces of Light, and talks about the coming to our planet to help us in a very, it is a spiritual mission that the Space Brothers are on to help this planet, and they help in various ways. One very specific way in which they help is to help absorb and clean up as far as they can within the bounds of karma, because there's the law of cause and effect. Of course, you can't go beyond a certain point of when you're helping people, and this is the case here. They help mop up and clean up nuclear radiation, which we put into the atmosphere a lot through all of our, and the advice of the masters of Maitreya is to close all nuclear installations immediately, and of course to stop all nuclear weapons testing, etc., which is polluting on that etheric level. And it explains, according to Benjamin Creme and his master, it explains why so many people are beginning to suffer certain kind of immune and neurological diseases, particularly, for example, Alzheimer's, at a much younger age than people did in the past. You know, you have dementia and so on. It might be senile dementia, just as a part of, the aging process, and perhaps not living as healthily as we could. But Alzheimer's and so on at a much lower level, younger level, in more people in the general population, is, according to the master, Benjamin Creme's master and himself, to do with nuclear pollution, which we don't have the sensitive enough instruments to pick up, but it is a fact. Now, Share International magazine, we've just finished making the December issue, and again, there is a photograph of a UFO just above Popocatépetl, the Mexican mountain. And every time the Space Brothers check on, and they keep an eye on, to help us and to keep an eye on things and how they look at, for example, nuclear installations. There's sightings of UFOs above nuclear installations. Now, we've just published a photograph of a UFO just above Popocatépetl, again, because possibly it's thinking of erupting, or maybe there's some sort of seismic activity. They keep an eye on that. We are helped and guided and given so much more aid and help than we could ever possibly know. The masters, together with the Space Brothers, are constant advisors, helpers, guides behind the scenes. You know, so many people at the moment believe in angels. A lot of the times when people are talking about angels, they're actually talking about some rescue, some help, some divine guidance, people say, oh, it was a coincidence that I didn't catch the plane that day and I was saved, and so on and so on. This is the kind of help we get constantly, day after day, minute. They are constantly there to help us and guide us. I mean, some people think they've got a master on their shoulder. I don't mean in that way, but they are behind the scenes helping and guiding all the time. And the space people too. And Benjamin Creme often said, that as Maitreya and the masters become more well known, so will the idea of and the reality of the space people become more known. And as I see now that there's been just recently, I think it was in Congress, there was a hearing just recently, again, bringing out some information to say, well, a lot of the sightings can be explained away. Could be a bird, hot air, a balloon, or whatever, a weather balloon, but quite a significant percentage cannot be explained away. And I think more and more people are open to the idea. Of course, there's life on other planets. Why would we be the only ones? And our solar system and all the planets in it is just the same as a human body with the chakras. And the planets are, as it were, the chakras in a great system. And that system is a system within another system, and so on. So life is limitless, infinite, endless, and it is all conscious. That is the amazing thing. And I think people are also growing into a greater sense of the fact that we're not only humanity conscious of it and growing into, but we're also so interconnected with all life forms on our planet, that there's more, we're beginning to sort of become more understanding of animals and the plant life around us and seeing the integration there. And all of this is to do, I know that you are, for example, quite interested in and have knowledge of some of the American Indian, Native American Indian teachings.
Well, I do
and
shamanism.
They have,
Yeah.
You do shamanism, yes. So you'll be very aware of our relationship with the animal kingdom and with the plant kingdom and so on. Humanity is actually supposed to be have a responsibility towards, be in a sense of a position of stewardship towards animals, the animal kingdom, towards plants and so on. So in the future, when we are living in harmony with ourselves, more and more as souls, and we're living and serving and helping each other and living in a kind of completely with different criteria, different standards, different norms, different principles, different longing to help and serve each other, and as love and wisdom, and that is the basis of everything, we will also be in a new relationship with our surroundings, with the animal kingdom, with the plants and so on. I know it sounds that I'm sketching a very idealistic, and it is, but what is wrong with that? Because I tell you what the opposite is. The opposite is cynicism, which says, no, that is not possible, and it depresses people. Well, let's live to our highest and think of the best we can be and live towards what we can achieve. And that could be on the simplest level, in everyday terms, in your community, helping and so on. There's a lot that we can look forward to. I think we have to go through, perhaps we have to go through what you said. We see what's going wrong now with our politics, and you begin to say, that's not the way to go. You mentioned it yourself, that we learn through seeing what's wrong.
I find it.
You put it.
I find it very inspiring. I mean, the acknowledgement that there are things that are wrong, we have to admit that, but people don't really want their realities shooken up too much. They want to remain, fixated in what they know and what they're comfortable with, even if it's dysfunctional or even if it's negative. It's what they know rather than what they don't know. I think by again expanding and drawing the attention to raise the bar of awareness is the key. And of the teachings that you're speaking of. I just had one more question on Maitreya. Like if I was like my grandmother or my mother and I was a little child and they brought up the subject of Maitreya to me, or I heard it, I'd say, who is he and when will he come? And will he come?
What a wonderful question. Who is he? Look, he is the most amazing I can't even tell you, I can't even begin to tell you. He is the embodiment of love on our planet. If you can imagine what that means, and I can't grasp fully what that means, but I know what it feels like to some extent. He is amazingly wise and kind, and but the masters, you know, are modern people. They're not sort of walking around being like saints and so on. I mean, they tackle the modern issues. So they tackle Maitreya's main focus is at the moment to look at politics and economics and see what's going wrong there and how we can change. So what is he like? I mean, he's like the most wonderful, wisest, most loving friend that you could possibly imagine, a guide and a help and so on, who knows and sees everything and yet is human and able to help. And his heart must be extraordinary. His heart encompasses us all. Can you imagine that? And you know that of Jesus, it was said that he was a man of sorrows and so on. But when I think about Maitreya, I can feel his energy at the moment. His heart encompasses us all. He has consciousness that knows each one of us.
Yeah.
And can reach you or reach any of us anytime that we are open to it. So who is he? He's all of that. He's all of the hope of humanity. He's all of the love and hope and the best of humanity. When is he coming? He is here. The thing is, I believe, and I'm speaking personally now, I believe that we have to put our house in order somewhat more. And as you were putting it, we have to learn from what's going on here, how we can improve things. We have to make an effort to at least get to a stage where people are not so... People are burdened at the moment by everyday life. And not everyone has the ability to rise above, you know, the poverty or the disasters that are happening, or their children being killed in different countries and so on, being sent to fight, whatever it is. So if we can get to the stage where we can just give ourselves a bit of a chance to breathe, so that we can look above
Yes.
so many people are going, you know, paycheck to paycheck. It's not working. I'm going crazy trying to see to my family, to my kids and so on. As soon as we do a little bit more of this, we show that we want the same things that Maitreya and the masters want. And what do they want? They want the best for us. They want the highest and best for humanity. They want us to flourish as the gods we are and can be. That's what they want. They want us to be in step with and to work in line with, if you want to call it this, a plan of God, which is simply the flow of humanity and of consciousness and of life itself developing into what developing into what we are in potential, bringing it into a fruition, so that we can all benefit from that and be the divine selves that we are. So when is he coming? As he cannot come and infringe our free will. So if there are too many people who are saying, no, we don't want to, he has to take his time. I don't believe that is the case. I think more and more people want him and are open to when I say him, I mean the changes that must happen, because he embodies he stands as a representative of those changes that must happen.
Yeah.
So he is the most marvelous being that you can imagine. It is everything that you are and will be. He is.
Thank you. Yeah.
He is us in potential, only, you know, we are in potential, he's way ahead of us. Think of all the wisdom of the Buddha, all the love of Jesus, all the tenderness of all of and the wisdom of all of the teachers, you know. Put it all together. That's Maitreya. He is here, but he's our older brother.
Yeah.
He's an older brother, and he's coming as a guide to help.
To this universe.
To lend us a hand.
Yeah.
To go forward.
If somebody were interested in reaching out, or you can share your website, Share International, or please.
Yes, Share International, share-international.org, and then USA, and there's a USA site. So Share International, share-international USA. And there are freely downloadable books, by the way. So people should go and have a look. And the information is there on the website. We have plenty of books, and we have magazine, Share International Magazine, which you can also find out about on the website there.
Yeah. And if you,
And
yeah.
yeah, give it a try. And sometimes there people are often at booths or at fairs or giving talks and so on. And information is all free, and there are many downloadable books for free. So investigate. It won't do you any harm, I would
Yeah,
say.
if you could leave the audience with a message maybe on how we can transform the world. I mean, you said a lot of different things during the interview, but if you wanted to leave just a short message.
Yes, I would say outwardly, because we started with the inner and the outer. So I would say outwardly do everything you can to manifest the best in yourself and help others in any way you can. And whatever you feel called to do, whether it's doing something to do with ecology or whether it's something to do with helping orphans in your neighborhood, whatever it is. So service in that way. Transmission meditation, which I mentioned right in the beginning, is a new form of meditation brought to the world and introduced to the world by Benjamin Creme's master. And it is a form of meditation which is a form of service to the world. You do it as a group. It requires nothing fancy or no expertise. You simply sit quietly and you align yourself. And there are a number of ways in which you could do that. And then the energies are sent through you by the masters, through your chakras. It's mainly the higher chakras. So the crown chakra, Ajna center, the throat center, and the heart particularly. And those are the energies are going out into the world. These are the new energies, which are energies which embody the new ideas which will help humanity take a step forward. So you're developing yourself, but the main emphasis is on service to the world. And look that up. There is a free book called Transmission Meditation, a meditation for the new age, for the new time. We mean the new time, new civilization.
Well, I want to thank you, Felicity, for joining me and sharing your insight, sharing your life's experience with evolving and raising people's levels of consciousness. And hopefully many people are on this path, and I know they are, listening to this kind of information and taking it to the next level and actually turning the thoughts into physical actions of helping others and sharing. And I think it's a beautiful organization, and I think the idea is powerful. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and I'm very pleased to have met you in this way. Good luck and best wishes for Thanksgiving and for the
Yes.
coming season.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank
All
you.
the best.